Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Friday. Do you know what? I'm so happy it's here. I don't know about the rest of you. I'm happy to
Agree.
see Friday. Yeah. Well, you can see there's four of us here in the room currently, and we're going to be chit-chatting back and forth, mainly about things associated with menopause, but not just that. We are ladies of a certain age. I think I can say that. Well, I just did, as it happens. And so menopause is on the mind. And do you know what? I um, I was thinking of seeing the Valentine cards in the shops this week, and you always kind of remember back when you were at school, wondering if you were going to get one. I don't know if any of you ever did. I don't recall getting one, as it happens. But yeah, so it made me think about loving one another, loving ourselves, and loving the skin we're in, and that becomes sometimes a bit more challenging with the passage of time. That's all I'm going to say on that subject. So just to say welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for coming along, ladies in the room, and anyone else who happens to be earwigging into our conversations. Thank you so much to Shirley Ward, nutritionist, our nutritionist, Jacquie Whur, the hypnotherapist extraordinaire, and Claire, our natural medicine woman and very slightly witchy. Um,
Very witchy, I have you know.
very witchy. So, I'm going to say this, but during the week, I was watching a program on the television, Claire, all about the witch hunts. Did you happen to see that on the? No. Oh, it was a really good watch. King James, I've forgotten what period he was in.
He
Yeah.
was, he was a successor to Elizabeth I. So we're talking about the 1600s when he started his persecution of the witches. Yes.
Yeah. And those witches were, a lot of them were midwives, and they were practicing natural, helping people type medicine,
Yep.
herbal medicine, plant medicine. There were some amulets involved. I think he objected to that. Natural talismans, those kinds of things that would have been around for centuries beforehand, no doubt. And so, we're going to be waving our own magic wands this afternoon. Speaking of magic, here we have Tamar
Hey.
entering the room, the magical counselor Tamar herself. So we were just talking about this documentary I happened to see on the television this week about the witch trials, and he started in Scotland, and they were really persecuted there in Scotland. Those women, and then when he finally succeeded to the throne in England, he brought his persecution with him along to England, and actually, my grandma always said to me that we were descended from the witches of Pendle, which is
Wow.
well, I mean, I really don't know if there's any truth in that. Haven't been on that program yet. Who the heck do you think you are? Maybe it's not quite called that. But yeah. But anyway, so natural medicine is something that has been around me, and with my family influences, my grandma in particular. I spent a lot of time with her. Poultices to put on your joints, knit, what's it called? Knit bone. Yeah, I was going to say knit weed, but that was wrong. Knit bone, and all these amazing herbal, approaches to our health, and so I still embrace that alongside my propensity for science wherever I can find it. So we're talking skin, love the skin you're in, and this was something that we did have a little sort of debate about in the group. Blemishes on the skin, skin changes around the time of menopause, and maybe it's coincidental that this is happening just because it is part of the aging process that we get these changes, age spots. They're called that for a reason, I reckon. So these things are happening to us, and we're trying to tackle this in a way that is, helping us to feel on top form. Something that isn't always easy, as it happens. And so at the same time, we want to love the skin we're in, the appearance of our skin, but also, that emotional sense around midlife, when you start to just wonder what the heck it's all about. Maybe that's just me. Now, I know I'm talking a lot, but the interweaving of what goes on in midlife, the aging process is something that is happening to us all the time. The changes, the hormonal changes in our bodies, for men and for women, in fact. These are all things that are happening to us, and then we start to see outward changes. And for sometimes those are innocuous and we don't need to be overly concerned. But there are times when it would be appropriate to seek a medical opinion of that. So, never sit around ignoring things is what I would say. It's really important. So let's talk around the group, the different kinds of things that might happen in our lives that could influence our skin, how we look, how we feel in our skin, all those kinds of things. So let me come first of all. We were talking witchcraft. So with the magic wand, we hope, Claire, hello, welcome. Hello, how are you?
Yes, thank you, Philippa. So on the metaphysical level of developing skin blemishes or discoloration of the skin, which can come from hyperpigmentation, which is hormonal changes, and certainly some people are going to be more prone to those than others, and perhaps if you did have children, you might have got the mask that can be the pregnancy mask that develops, etc. So some people, some people are more prone. The skin is always a map and a reflection of what's going on inside the body. And that's why, yes, the good advice we're all giving is the fact that you need to, if you're worried about something and something's changed, go to the doctor to check what it is. But on a metaphysical level, discoloration of the skin can land up leaving you feeling ashamed of yourself and wanting to blend in with other people. So there's a kind of fear of standing out and being noticed. And I guess when menopause does, and in some cases feel like it's struck, it can make people feel really embarrassed and obvious because their body is giving away physical symptoms they necessarily wouldn't have disclosed themselves. It may have been about you may feel that you're undeserving and not allowed to have privileges. You may have been taught that you're of service to others and your own needs come last. How you were made to feel when you expressed your own needs. This may be from an ancestral line where a person's individuality was suppressed and not tolerated. They were not allowed to be better than others. There may have been ancestral trauma related to dangerous circumstances, and ancestors may have needed to hide from potential threats. They may have felt exposed, betrayed by their own family. God, it all speaks to witchcraft. But anyway, there is that in the line. And when you hear something like that, that's just a metaphysical reason for why something can come about. And that doesn't mean you're stuck with it. It means you just have some metaphysical work to do, which means looking at kind of in a more spiritual way, how you would clear those things from your bloodline. The practicalities, however, pigmentation in this here now moment, there's a couple of oils that are particularly helpful. One of them is geranium. So geranium helps to reduce the pigmentation, so bring it down a level. Then we've got neroli or sweet orange. That's really good. Sandalwood and carrot seed. And then also lemon oil. And the lemon. It helps to kind of remove dead skin and help with cellular regeneration, which is ultimately what we want. And obviously lemon is kind of a bleaching thing as well, but you've got to be really careful with lemon oil or any citric oil on the skin because it's phototoxic. So if you're going to be applying it, you need to see like someone like me, a qualified aromatherapist, and be doing it in periods of time when you're not going to be exposed to the sun. So at this time of year is rather perfect, really, because your chances of being exposed to the sun are very minimal. And I do make creams for all of those things that just help, natural creams. But I just wanted to share that it's not, there's things that can be done that are quite natural.
And I do often come back to this where sort of you are what you eat, and the outward reflection of what's going inward is something that happens. So, Shirley, did you have any thoughts on this at all?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with some of the suggestions that Claire has been saying about from oil's point of view. So I'm not a herbalist, but I have actually studied that as part of my nutritional therapy course. But yeah, it's an interesting one, the skin pigmentation, and it's going back to looking at each person as an individual. There is some research that shows that for some people, a condition called insulin resistance is a link with skin pigmentation, but you have to look at the individual. Insulin resistance occurs when we're not able to manage our blood glucose levels effectively. And so insulin is the hormone which is responsible for driving glucose in the bloodstream into the cells for energy, for mental and physical energy, and to store excess for future energy reserves. In a normal body, insulin is secreted when the body or when glucose is picked up in the bloodstream from if we keep it basic, from food choices, predominantly carbohydrates, and that produces insulin. So in a normal body, the insulin is produced to take the glucose from the bloodstream into the cells to fuel us. And as I said, any excess is stored for future energy reserves in the liver initially. Where insulin resistance happens is where blood glucose levels remain unusually high in the bloodstream for a whole range of factors. Insulin production continues on to try and balance and remove that excess blood glucose. And over time, the receptors on the cells no longer respond to insulin's stimulation. So they become resistant to insulin. And so those blood glucose levels remain high. So you can get to the stage where you've got high blood glucose levels and high insulin levels. And there is some research to show that when insulin levels remain high in the blood, there is a link with skin cells reproducing rapidly, especially those associated with pigmentation. So that's where that can occur. As I say, it comes back down very much to the individual. But it's an interesting link. And as a diabetes prevention coach, it's something that I come across quite regularly. And certainly the insulin resistance element. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, I suppose there is some evidence that this skin pigmentation might be can not always be associated with diabetes, but there's lots of people with undiagnosed conditions who don't necessarily know this, and so who knows where you are on the spectrum, I suppose, is until you go and see a doctor and get tested. So
I was just about to say the best thing that you can do to find that out is to ask your GP for an HbA1c test. And that is one of the most accurate ways. Obviously, it's one of the ways, but it's one of the most accurate ways to identify if you're at risk of type 2 or not, whether your results come into the pre-diabetes group.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, the thing that I think, for me over this last couple of years, talking about menopause, doing some of my own research and listening to lots of other people's output, if you like, is that there's so much about this transition that we're still not really 100% clear on. The associations and everything being so interwoven, doesn't exactly help, does it? But I do feel it's still an under-researched area, and so that things are going to continue to keep coming out of the woodwork over the next number of years, and hopefully that is the case, because this is being taken more seriously, and that maybe there's an incentive to explore it now that the governments, it's being raised in awareness at the level of government. So hopefully, we are going to see more interest in this topic as a whole, and no doubt there will be more interest if somebody thinks they can make a product that people will buy. So I'm quite sure there'll be some of that going on. So, you know, for me personally, I have noticed a lot more of what I would call age spots. They've been called liver spots. Not that that means anything particularly, just I think it was the colour of the spots on the hands and also on my face. And I, you know, this really does speak to the sun exposure that I probably had a bit too much of when I was living in Cyprus. And I remember as a young woman putting baby oil on my skin, thinking that was going to make my Celtic pale skin somehow go brown. Well, you know, it never did work, as it happens. I just went red. But that's probably coming back to visit me now here in middle life. And whether it's to do with menopause or it's just the time of my life, you know, to me, that is somewhat irrelevant. What is important is that, and I know when I was working as regularly in a hospital physiotherapy department, we had a dermatologist come around and train us to be able to distinguish between what might be a mole that is innocuous and one that might just require medical review. Because, of course, I would see people with the clothes off, most of the clothes off, not all of them, most of them though. And so you see in the back of people, and you know, people don't really look at their own, you know, you can't quite get there, can you, for yourself? So we had a little bit of training to spot moles that might be going rogue. So the irregular shape is something, and also to be mindful of if you have an irregular shaped mole type skin eruption, and for it to be, I can't think of a better word. Crusty is not a very nice word, is it? But it does what it says on the tin. And so if you've got an uneven shape and uneven in texture and maybe occasional bleeding if you catch it or something like that, then without hesitation, go and get it checked out, because you know, we mustn't sit on things. We sit on things for way too long before we get help, and so please don't be doing that today if you've got any worries or concerns. So apart from the appearance of our skin and any sort of what's the word, imperfections, that's the word I'll use, on the outside, you know, Claire alluded to the fact that there may be things going on inside of us around this time of menopause that are undermining our confidence. And when your skin's misbehaving, that can definitely do it, can't it? So Tamar, what kind of things could we do to maybe improve how we feel about all these things that are happening to us around this time of menopause?
Well, I guess a lot of it's to do with self-acceptance, isn't it? Because we have very little control over this thing that's happening. There's things we can do to work with the symptoms and the issues coming up, but part of it is just kind of to accept it, because you know, things like liver spots on your hands and your face is a visual reminder every day that you're not 17, even though that's how you feel inside, because a lot of us don't feel our age inside, do we? Mm-hmm. And so this physical reminder every day, especially if your outward appearance has been something that's been important to you through your life, mm-hmm. Suddenly, you know, there's this reminder there every day that, oh, okay, I'm not 17 anymore. I remember driving along one day and doing that with my hands and going, oh, my mother's hands. And it was a real shock because to me, I'm still 17. And then there was 40-year-old hands looking at me. Mm-hmm. And it's that integration of the internal and the external world and the acceptance and working on the things you can work with your diet and exercise and oils and things like that. And the things that you can't accept, well, you know, and there's that point, isn't there, of, I think turning 40 is one of them, and menopause is the other way. You just kind of care a little bit less about what everyone else thinks, and that's quite important for people.
Yeah, you're right. It is important for us to you know, kind of feel less concerned about what other people are thinking. I don't think that should mean that we give up on caring about ourselves, should it though, Jacquie? What do you say?
Oh, complete opposite. I mean, I want to pick up on the statement that you said about loving the skin that you're in, because this is something that an awful lot of clients come to me with. But it's not the skin as in looking at the skin. It's the body. It's, you know, they look in the mirror and just don't like what they see anymore. And this self-shaming and self-loathing that seems to develop for an awful lot of people is so detrimental. And it really does fall into both the avenues that Shirley's talking about in terms of the hormonal responses, but also Tamar with acceptance, because when we're shaming ourselves, we are flooding our body with the cortisol, the stress hormones. It's such a negative place to put the body into. And when people are looking, so perhaps coming from the avenue of weight gain, which a lot of people experience during the menopausal time, if there's self-loathing that's happening, people come and they're wanting to sort of learn to love themselves again, and they want to be back to who they were. But it's impossible to do that if you're traveling a road hating yourself. How can you get to the destination through hating yourself? It just doesn't happen. So this is where the self-acceptance sort of really ties in as well. You actually have to learn to love yourself right now in order to get to where you want to be, because we can't hate ourselves into the person that we would like to be becoming. So yeah, and that way, when we find that sense of loving who we actually are, we are changing our hormonal response in our body. This is the point when we actually can start to make decisions because we love ourselves. So rather than eating certain things to try and make yourself feel better, i.e., I call the sugary things, the comfort foods that people might sort of stereotypically go for, you can find yourself in a different place where you could be thinking, why would I want to eat those things? Because actually, at the end of the day, I don't feel that good when I eat them. But when we are experiencing any kind of shame or self-loathing, it is as detrimental to our body mentally and physically as it is if somebody, a third party, was saying these things to ourselves. So when our inner voice is constantly telling us the negative sides, then yeah, it has a huge bearing on ourselves. So it's so important just to take that one statement of loving the skin that you're in and actually applying that, to ourselves mentally and physically.
And I think I love what you said. You can't get to that destination if the journey you're taking is through self-loathing. You won't.
It's impossible.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. You always sort of think this will change somehow, but no. So I think we have to get to maybe fake it till we make it is something that I was listening to a podcast the other day, and a lady who decided that one day she would get up and just give herself a high five in the mirror every morning. And this was one change that she made. So it was, greeting yourself with a smiley, happy face and a high five to you every morning, setting you off in a more positive frame of mind. And also, you go girl, that kind of, I guess she was American, but, that's okay. So ways that we can approach changing, making that shift, little small strategies that we can immediately put into our everyday that will make that difference. So the journey to self-love comes as we each morning wake up, greet ourselves with a high five in the mirror, and embrace who we are and all the wonderful stuff that we've no doubt done and seen and experienced. So Tamar, is there anything more on that you would like to add?
Yeah, so the version that we use in counselling of the high five in the morning is positive affirmations. So every morning and every night you give yourself a positive statement, because your brain believes what you tell it. So if you wake up going, I'm going to have a crappy day, you'll have a crappy day. So my son and I start every day with positive affirmations. I like to show me how good it can get. This is going to be a great day. All the positive things. And you can say things like, I love myself. I love my body. I'm feeling great. All that kind of thing. And over time, that kind of comes embedded as part of your routine, and your brain starts to believe what you tell it.
Right. So your brain's believing it, and then the biochemistry is changing as a consequence of that. And so this just becomes a kind of a self-fulfilling cycle prophecy. And we can do it.
I'd like to add in
either way. Yes.
Sorry, Philippa, about self-compassion, which I think is very much, I think what Jackie was saying about, so many people have that self-loathing element, and just by being a bit kinder to yourself, and I see this a lot with, a lot of people that I support, and it's thinking about you. It's just being aware of your thoughts and any potential thought traps, which I love this term, thought traps, that can take you off track of what you're trying to do. Just being aware of certain thoughts and words, can't, won't, never, always, and just simply acknowledging when you're having those thoughts, and slightly modifying, just like, I'll try to be, I'll try to do, and just, it brings in that realistic element and a bit of flexibility in there. Just a point I thought was, I think it's really interesting what we've all been talking about. And as going back to what you were saying, Philippa, it's small changes. And I see this all the time. Small changes bring over time really great benefits. Doesn't need to be difficult.
No, it doesn't need to be difficult. It might feel like you're about to climb a mountain, but we just take that trip one step at a time. And so, Claire, we want to wave the magic wand, don't we? And there's nothing more attractive than a smiley, happy sort of a person, is there, Claire?
No. There isn't anything more attractive than that, because your light shines brightly, as mine is doing right over my face right now. I've just chosen this moment to visit. Absolutely. No, I just concur. And as our subconscious is responsible for running 95% of our lives and can't reason, then starting with reprogramming it with positive affirmation is incredibly important and valuable. And can be as little as, there's a 55-5 ratio where you write what you want 55 times for 5 days in a row, and you write it with entirely positive language, and write it as if it's already happened. So God, I love myself, or I'm a wonderful person, or I'm healthy, I'm well, all of those things. But if you do it 5 days in a row, then that is enough for the subconscious to hold on to that message. And as you say, make the physiological changes that go along with that direction.
Yeah, that's right. So journaling is a very powerful way of changing and creating that shift. I think the danger sometimes, I look back at some of the stuff that I've written and I was just moaning, really.
It's because you focused on the negative. You need to switch it to the positive.
This is it, isn't it? So there's a how we go about doing these things. The devil is in the detail.
Oh, I learned something the other day. Has anyone here used emotional freedom technique with the tapping?
Oh, yeah, Jackie knows this. Jackie does this.
So that's a way of doing a bit of both, by saying, even though I hate myself and I feel fat, I love and accept myself. So you're recognizing the negative and acknowledging it, whilst making it just a thought and coming back with self-love. And I thought that was cool.
Yeah. So I encourage people to kind of actually say, even though this is how I'm feeling, however the feeling is, I forgive myself. Because it's internally in the mind to start saying you love yourself when actually you've got a voice inside going, no, you don't. You've got a conflict going on. So it's forgiveness that really, self-forgiveness for me, I think, is more important, because that's the thing with positive affirmations. They are great, but depending on where you are at, it just creates internal conflict, because you feel like you're just lying to yourself. So you have to forgive yourself for actually having these thoughts, and then just sort of offer up that you're willing to learn. I'm learning. I'm going on a journey of learning to love myself, because that creates a very different feeling inside. You know, that's one that's creating a feeling of possibility rather than actually bringing up a full-on conflict where they just feel like they're lying to themselves. I don't love myself. You know, so this then plays into, you know, the inner voice. So one of the ways in terms of helping to deal with the inner voice is to acknowledge it. I hear you, but I'm okay. I'm okay. I hear you. We have to bring in an element of space. So when we apply second and third person language, we do that. It allows us to feel internally that we've got a little bit of room. We're not denying what we're thinking or feeling. I hear you, but I'm okay. So when we say we're okay, it's acknowledging right at this moment in time, actually, I am safe. I am okay, because whatever conflict you're feeling within the mind at the moment in time, it's sort of probably trying to point out that you're not feeling safe, which is, you know, when people are bringing up things, internal words and thoughts of self-loathing, it's because they don't feel safe. So they need to reassure them, I'm okay. I hear you. Even using your name, applying a third person, you know, third person helps to bring even more space in helping to move that inner voice away. So incorporating that into the tapping, into the EFT, into all sort of changes, because when the inner voice is sort of offering up and saying, oh, don't bother exercising, don't bother eating that, don't bother doing that, it is actually coming from a place of safety. It's trying to conserve. But we have to learn to reparent it, really, because we actually do know better rather than always listening to the inner negative voice. So, yeah, it does all kind of tie in. Yeah.
Well, it certainly does. And, you know, it takes all sorts and lots of different strategies. Different strategies will speak to different people. And so it's important that we have a pick and mix approach to this. Managing this time of our lives, that we can, you know, eat well, move well, we can nourish our mind with the thoughts that we think, and overall feel better is really truly the thing that I want for people, that we can feel better, feel well, and then our lives will hopefully go a little bit more according to the way in which we would prefer it. So, well, I really appreciate you coming along and sharing your wisdom with me today. Thank you so much for your time. I know that we have places to go and people to see. If you would like to join us in the Moving Through Menopause Facebook group, we'd love to see you there. Do have a fabulous rest of your day, everybody, and we'll be together again soon, I hope. Take care for now. Bye for now.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.